So File Catalyst, have any of you guys heard of File Catalyst? Do you know what we do at all? You know what Cloudian does, I'm sure. Great storage. When you have great storage, you need to have ways to get files into that storage in an accelerated way. So that's how File Catalyst ties into Cloudian. I'm going to talk a little bit about how File Catalyst works, why we're better than traditional file transfer methods, and then how that ties into the Cloudian HyperStore. So we've actually won multiple Emmy Awards for our software for work with NBC Olympics and for basically pioneering the space of accelerated file transfer over the last 10 or so years. So as everybody's well aware, back in the early 2000s, we moved from SD to HD, and then we're moving to 4K, and then we're moving on to 8K. The video content and the content in general is just massive these days, and it's continuing to grow. So it facilitates, companies like Cloudian facilitate the storage of these massive archives of data, but it's going to continue to grow over the next several years, and you really need to have a way to move those files effectively, and legacy tools just aren't really up to the challenge because they're susceptible to things like network impairments like latency and packet loss that you have when you have long-haul links. So the file sizes just continue to balloon. I mean, we're getting into the 400 gig plus range for a full 8K video. So, and once you throw in HDR and those sort of things, it skyrockets even more. So, as I mentioned, as time goes on, the problem just gets larger. Getting these files moved around through post-production, production, where do you store them? That's where Cloudian comes in. And then again, File Catalyst, moving the files. You got to get them from site A to site B effectively, and nobody wants to just ship hard drives and that sort of thing to move them around. So when you want to get your content onto the Cloudian storage and workflows that integrate with Cloudian storage, you need a file transfer accelerator to kind of facilitate that bottleneck and get rid of that bottleneck so you can work effectively and collaborate on these files. So what does File Catalyst actually do? So traditional file transfer methods like FTP, they're based on the TCP protocol. And the way that works is it sends a little bit of data, gets an acknowledgement, sends a little bit of data, gets acknowledgement. And the further away you are geographically or the higher bandwidth, you actually spend more time waiting for acknowledgements than sending data. So what we've done is we've introduced our own protocol that's based on UDP. What that really means in a nutshell is we're able to send at a perfect stream regardless of your bandwidth and regardless of the latency and the packet loss on the network, geographic region, we can maximize your bandwidth. Whereas with TCP, it's going to be unreliable. The faster your bandwidth speed is, the more you need something like File Catalyst, and the further away geographically you are, the more RTT and latency you have on your network, the more you need something like File Catalyst to move large files effectively. This just illustrates a little bit what I was just saying. You can see here, this is TCP, sending one packet at a time, getting acknowledgements, whereas with File Catalyst, you're sending multiple at the same time, so you're able to really maximize that flow of data, just to make sure that you're optimally using your link that you're paying a lot of money for. And you've got to get your content across as fast as possible. So we can send files up to 10 gigabits per second. We have all the things that you would expect, like if the transfer is interrupted, we can restart it, guarantee the integrity of the file. We have encryption on the file, so it's not going to be compromised in transit. And we're integrated with all the major MAMs and workflow providers and storage providers throughout the show. Primarily, we're dealing with Cloudian here. It's set up in a client-server architecture. So if you're familiar with FTP, then you're familiar with this model. So you have a File Catalyst server which is connected to your storage. It could be cloud storage, could be attached storage on your network on-premise. And then we have a series of client applications that connect to the server here to facilitate transfers to and from your storage. So one of them, for example, our hot folder. That allows you to monitor folders on your desktop or on a storage location, pick up new files when it sees them and keep them in sync with files at the destination. So you can use this to migrate content to and from a Cloudian HyperStore, for example. We have just traditional desktop applications as well, like if you're familiar with FileZilla or those types of tools, then we have that two-pane approach as well. We also have web-based applications, so you can browse into a web page without ever having used File Catalyst, and then start uploading in an accelerated manner into Cloudian HyperStore. And we have mobile applications, so if you're in the field, for example, shooting video, need to get it back to a central location, you can do that very quickly with our mobile apps. And we have SDKs as well. If you have third-party tools or you want to build an application, you can use our SDK to build that. Just an example of the speed gains that you would get. So this is a 1 gigabit connection, and I think this is a 10 gig file. So the speed difference from Amsterdam to London, for example, hour and 28 minutes for that 10 gig file with FTP, a minute and 23 seconds with File Catalyst. And you can see as the geographic distance grows between the locations, that number, that RTT, 150 milliseconds, 220, that's what the network conditions become like as you kind of have distant locations. And you can see FTP gets slower and slower transferring, whereas File Catalyst maximizes that link regardless of the geographic location. So you get that consistent speed and predictability with File Catalyst. You can imagine if you have a Cloudian storage in North America and you have files in Europe and you're trying to move them into a Cloudian storage, something like File Catalyst can allow you to maximize your bandwidth and get it in there much faster. So the question on a lot of people's minds is always, well, okay, what does it cost? So is it monthly? So you can get our software from $300 a month on-premise, and that gives you access to the server, 5 concurrent connections, and you can connect as many clients as you want to that, but 5 could be transferring at a time. Okay. Another model that we do is pay per gigabyte. So if you have a production or a budget for 2 weeks and you have a set amount of data, you can actually just pay per gigabyte and you don't pay again until you actually need to use the software again. So multiple models there, depending on your volume. Maybe if you have the consistent transfers every month all the time, then the monthly is the way to go. It's unmetered. You don't have to pay for the amount of data. And none of these are capped on the amount of bandwidth that you have as well. So they're all up to 10 gigabits. And then we have people who are building into cloud applications. So we have cloud marketplace listings for Azure, for Amazon as well, all the major cloud providers. New at this show, actually, we're offering a new product called File Catalyst Spaces as well. And that's a SaaS service that facilitates email links, sending links to users with a link to a file to download. And you can attach this service to your Cloudian storage, which is on-premise. This service is pay-as-you-go, and it's as little as $10 per user per month. So it's really low-cost entry point. If you've ever, shared files with Dropbox or Google Drive, and you kind of want to create your own portal that does that functionality with your own brand, then that's what File Catalyst Spaces does. And for $10 per user per month, it's pretty low cost. And now everybody's using the same tool. And again, now you can take your files that are on your Cloudian HyperStore, and you can use that to send links to people they can download directly with an accelerated manner from the Cloudian storage from an email link, having never installed the software before. So that's something that's new. You can check it out at our booth. We have demos. But yeah, $10 a month is pretty low cost to get into that. So yeah, you can stop by our booth. It's kind of over there and down that way, 12116. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, all the usual means, filecatalyst.com. And I have a couple of brochures. There's some in the seats as well that gives you $600 in credits for File Catalyst Spaces. So you can pretty much start up using that for free. All the setup costs are waived, and the first few months of costs and data transfer is all waived. And then also the consumption license that I mentioned earlier with the per gigabyte, we also give you a free terabyte of transfer. So you can try it out, basically any one of those services for free for a couple months and actually see if you like it or not. And there's no obligation. You just stop using it. You don't pay any more. Any questions?